All right, well, let's make a start. So welcome and thanks everybody for joining today. My name's Andrew Rees. I'm the General Manager at Navigo, for those that haven't met me before. The webinar today is going to focus on working through a restructure and in particular how workforce modelling can help you do that. To make it a little bit more interesting, we've come up with 8 items that we've identified as key pain points, and we've got some secrets on how you can address those when completing a restructure. So a lot of our customers will know some or all of these secrets for a pain-free restructure, and they may be using some or all of them. And today we're going to talk through those in a little bit more detail and how you can apply them to your organisation. I'm going to have some screenshots coming through with one of Navigo's workforce modelling tools as part of the demonstration. We think that those tools make this process a lot easier. However, all of these items, you can use them in whatever tool you're using or however you manage your restructure. We think that these items apply to any way that you approach it. So a little bit about Navigo, for those that don't know. We've been working with Australian companies since 2002, a little over 600 customers around the region. We're privately held, Australian company, and we're all based in Melbourne. So myself and my team here, we're all in our Melbourne office. For those using the Ascender payroll system, we're Australia's only independent payroll consultancy. My background, I've spent the last 10 years working with HR, previously based in Dublin and Hong Kong and working across EMEA and the APAC regions. Our technical consultants, they split their time between payroll upgrades and technical consulting work and the workforce modelling tools that we look after. So the really good thing that I see, the consistent feedback we get when they go on site is they've got a really great mix of deep technical knowledge that comes out of their payroll work, and they've got an ability to implement that in a practical and efficient way. So for Navigo as an implementation company primarily for these products, that's great to see, and we think it really kicks in with a new implementation, a new customer, because our guys are not fazed by a complex chart or requirement that might have 30 or 40 conditional formats on it. That's their skill set, and the more technical, the more they really like it. So you can see on screen some of the categories that we cover. You can go to our website and read more about it. We service these categories through our tools with a mix of desktop, cloud and on-prem solutions. So Navigo as a company, we're platform agnostic, and we look to maintain a product suite that matches what Australian corporates and governments what their requirements are for things like data security, privacy and reporting. And every customer is a little bit different, and for us, the prime reason we exist is to be able to help those individual customers. We also partner with some highly experienced HR change management consultants. So for anyone out there that's looking for guidance on their HRIS strategy, their system selection or the technology, we've got some great consultants that we work with as well. We have a sister company, so anyone that's interested in the onboarding space, HR Onboard is our sister company. They've just launched a new website and gone live in every 7-Eleven store across the country. So on your next visit to a 7-Eleven, you can get your fuel and you can ask the person behind the counter about their amazing onboard experience with HR Onboard. So just a little bit of information about them. We're pretty active at the moment on LinkedIn and with our blog posts, and we're obviously running a webinar today. So we're keeping busy with that and looking to share content we think is useful for our customers and those in the org charting and workforce modelling space. So there's a couple of articles here. If you haven't seen them, you can pick them up from our LinkedIn page. And I'd encourage everyone that's on the webinar today to while we're going through the webinar, go to our LinkedIn page and you can follow Navigo, and then you'll get those articles coming through. It's probably 2 or 3 a month, and we're always interested in suggestions. So if you've got something in particular, a topic that you want us to talk about, we'll research that. a couple on screen here. So the gender pay gap, that talks to the WGA reporting and Labor potentially bringing in mandatory pay gap reporting. And we've got one there on HR analytics, workforce modelling. We also run an Org Plus LinkedIn user group, and we're posting tips to that. So people that are in the Org Plus platform, you can head to that site there and follow the Org Plus user group, and you'll get those tips coming through, and there's a chance there to interact and talk with other people using the Org Plus platform as well, which is often more interesting than just talking to us. We just published our 6th annual, or our 6th Australian HR technology survey. Had a lot of downloads, a lot of interest in that, so you can get that off our website. And there's a lot of, we cover 17 categories in the survey, and getting great feedback on that. And also keep an eye out for an Inside HR article, which I wrote recently, and that'll be coming out on the trends and issues we see facing the HR technology space in Australia. So let's get into it. So workforce modelling, I thought I'd kick off with a quick definition of workforce modelling versus HR analytics, just to place it for everybody. So for us, we see HR analytics as the data-driven assessment of your current workforce relative to business outcomes, whereas workforce modelling is the creation of scenarios to visualise skill gaps and future talent needs. So before we hit the 8 secrets, this is kind of secret 0, if I can start there. So the one thing you should always do for a restructure is set the project scope and the objectives. So this helps to identify the challenges you're likely to encounter and to let you set a shared roadmap for a successful project. So, the first thing is, what's the main reason for the restructure? So has that been clearly defined and agreed? Is it a merger? Is that occurring in the same location, or are you geographically spread around the country or across the world? Are you looking to reduce headcount, and why is that occurring? Are the resources being deployed elsewhere? Are there parts of the business that need to be preserved or protected? How deep do the cuts need to go? And from that, what's the mandate for HR, for the business partners, for the line managers? Is the organisation being cleaned up as part of this process, and why does it need cleaning up? Is this a combination of businesses? Have you got replication of roles and duties? Do you need to focus on a reduction in middle management or a particular area? Have you reached a point where you've got a new business model? So a change in customer requirements, change in the economy, market forces, you've had some supply chain impact, or changes in your talent resources that you need to manage. The time frame or constraints are always really important. So, what's driving that timeline? Is it realistic? What needs to be delivered and when? And in particular, what are the hard deadlines? So, what are those real dates that you can't miss and that have been set by the people that often set these deadlines? And sometimes the deadlines are forced, not necessarily to be set within the realities of the project, but they exist. And does the timeline include deadlines and deliverables for the key stakeholders? And does it include some time to actually create those resources for the stakeholder review? Which then is obviously the next one is the restructure team and the resources. So what resources are you going to have available? What's their skill set? Where are they located? How do they currently communicate? What's their preferred methods? What options do you have available? Has this team met each other before? Do they have an already existing working relationship and methodology? Is it an internal or an external team, and the issues that go with managing that? And your stakeholders, how do they like to receive information? How do they make decisions? And what are the internal forces or requirements that exist? And in particular, how does your organisation distribute information and like to digest it? And that's always really important as you look to set how the project is going to progress. And then from that, what tools are you using? So Are you in email, Excel, Slack, Word, PowerPoint, Visio? What are the systems where the data's coming from? Your HRIS, your payroll, do you have data in other sources as well that you need to combine? Do you even have data, or do you need to go out and collect it? Do you need to test the integrity of it? And are you using a workforce modelling tool, or how are you going to bring all of that together? So let's jump into the 8 items, or the 8 secrets we've got listed for today. So as we go through them, we're going to talk about assessing and cleaning up your HRIS data as the first step. Sharing your current state and doing that in a secure way. Creating a future state scenario or multiple scenarios and then collaborating with those. Ensuring a fast, accurate management review process. A clear process to update those scenarios. Coordinating your approvals. And then tracking the changes for HR rollout and your HRIS update. And facilitating a quarterly review or an org health check. So this is kind of it's a bit of a flow of how to work through a restructure, and that's how we've approached it. And these items done correctly can save a lot of administrative time, and that's where a lot of our focus is, coming from workforce modelling tools, and I'm going to bring that into the webinar today, so that you've got some ideas of how you can cut corners and save yourself some time as you work through this process. So in terms of assessing and cleaning up your HRIS data, when a restructure starts, the first question is often a knock at the door or a phone call, and I need an up-to-date org chart. And sometimes we get that phone call here when that call has come through to an HR department, and it's a bit of a scramble to figure out how to do that and what tool needs to be used and the different ways to approach it. So it can be easily said and hard to do if the organisation hasn't put any time into maintaining its people data. So the reasons for poor or dirty data. So why do you need to do this cleanup? If there's no single source of truth, if you've got missing data, broken hierarchies, code management. So have you got new codes created and old ones that haven't been decommissioned or end dated? And do you have data coming in from multiple systems, or you've got multiple sources of truth out there, and as part of the project, the stakeholders are requiring you to consider those multiple sources. The effects of dirty data on a restructure can be pretty significant. So the first is probably the most important, which is a lack of confidence in the data set. And once that sets in, it can be pretty hard to pull that back. Incorrect decisions obviously flow from that. Budget implications if salary data is wrong or the positions are wrong. Loss of talent, threat to the project timeline, and then when you get to the end of the project, the data that's going back into your HRIS or payroll, is that still incorrect? So in terms of the data cleaning checklist, so the first one is having, obviously up-to-date data. So making sure you've got your data that's current, and you've got ownership by line managers of their data. And you can do that by distributing the information to them, getting them to look at it, correct it, engage a little bit of crowdsourcing in cleaning up the HRIS data, getting rid of duplicates, so duplicate ID numbers, people who have held multiple positions or reporting lines, and that still exists in your structure. ID numbers, are they labelled or categorised correctly? Do you have missing values? How many are there? Where are they? And are they having an effect on the data analysis? Do you have numerical outliers? So do you need to define some ranges to assess your data? And do you have things that are sitting outside that or not matching, which are probably wrong? So you want to look for opportunities to engage the organisation, and visual tools are one way to do that, to sort out your vacancies, orphans, or a broken hierarchy. So once you've done that, you need to share the current state, and you want to do that in a secure way. So often, there's large amounts of sensitive data, and sharing, with Excels flying around or particular salary information, you need to be really careful about how you manage those data files. So you can do it in a couple of ways. You can put together an org chart based on the structure. You can choose what data or key metrics you want to include in that, and then you can make multiple versions or views or perspectives of that available to share that data with your stakeholders in a visual way. If you're using a workforce modelling tool, there's a couple of advantages that eliminate the administration out of this step. So your org chart's instantly created from your HRIS data. You'll be able to use your existing user roles and the security rights assigned to them so that you can give wider access to the charts. So by that, what we mean is particular managers, they can see sensitive data about their department only, but they can navigate through the rest of a restructure plan as you want them to, or limit them to specific areas. And you can set the charts and views that are meaningful and relevant to the restructure team, to stakeholders, and define who you want to see what. We suggest controlling the different views and what's required across the group so that you can determine the best ways to share the information and work out what works within your organisation. So do you need to go wide and bring in a whole group and keep them informed throughout the process? Or do you need to go deep with a particular group and have a lot of statistical information, a lot of data, employee data that you're showing, and manage that? You can use things like conditional formatting or highlighting to identify high and low performers, KPIs, gaps, areas of concern, and also do things like display your headcount, span of control, salaries, department salaries, are these above or below budget, and the objectives around that. Okay, number 3, creating a future state scenario and collaborating with it. So when you're creating a future state scenario, there's a couple of key items to be aware of. You need to maintain control of who's doing what. So the traditional approach is get everyone in a room and have everyone on the phone, and there's one person controlling the box on the screen, and everyone puts in their input, and the sticky notes are moved, or the employee boxes are cut and paste, and the new structure is created. You can use a workforce modelling tool to do things like drag and drop employees and create a digital version of your new structure or in that future state scenario. One of the advantages of that is all of the data behind it, so the metrics, the salary information, the employee information, that'll move with the employee or the department. So then you get real-time updates against things like those metrics, which you can then see, are they inside or outside the KPI range of what you're trying to achieve with the objectives. So it takes the guesswork out of whether the new structure is going to meet the objectives or not. The next stage of it is to be able to share it. So, being able to export the image of the chart that you're looking at, copy and paste that into an email. How big is the chart? How do you need to share it? Giving people access to the system in a secure way so that they can see that scenario and comment on it. One of the things you can do with some of the systems is create a link, so people that are outside of your system that need to be engaged in the restructure, they can go to that link, they can have perhaps edit or control rights and make changes and contribute to the restructure. When moving positions and controlling the hierarchy, it's important to maintain the integrity of your data set. So being able to choose whether the position or the employee is moving and switch between them and control that can be important. Some of the questions that usually come up are, what are the headcount and budget goals? Who are the new leaders going to be? What are we doing with vacancies? Are we filling these or are we tracking them? Which departments are going to be over budget? And what's the headcount look like once the restructure's been done? So things like visualization rules allow you to track this and do it in a visual way with colors or particular highlights on charts. And you can put in simple calculations, things like salary or budget, or complex things like who are our hypos, who's a flight risk, who are the key successes or poor performers, and highlight them on the chart. Okay, so ensuring a fast and accurate management review process. So, this is really important to maintain momentum and not get caught up in the formatting or reformatting or reporting administration. And sometimes that can be determined by the stakeholders and what they need. The all-nighter spent organising the org chart and redoing the boxes. I mean, that hurts the person who's doing it, which is never great. And it's often out of date by the time the next meeting happens. Or certainly by the end of that meeting, all of that effort's gone. The manual interaction also can throw up some accuracy issues, and you're trying to move quickly and maintain accuracy, which can be difficult. So to avoid it, we recommend setting up your stakeholders with access to the data set or the reporting prior to the review, and either train them up if you can on how to do that, or use an intuitive format so they can immediately interact with it. If you can get them to self-serve the information, even better. And a good workforce modelling tool will give you access to every field in your HRIS or payroll system, so you can manipulate it, you can apply those calculations and formatting, and really speed up people's ability to understand what's going on in the restructure and what's important. Being able to instantly copy the restructure in its current form post-meeting, share it, create a formatted PDF that has links and bookmarks and so on. Those are things that let you deal with the high demand users in your organisation. And if you can do that immediately following a restructure meeting, you get the information out, so there's no vacuum there. So a clear process to update your scenarios. So you've shared the charts, you've created them, your new structure, you've got your commentary, and then you need to go back and update the scenarios. So it's either really simple or really painful. A change log is going to help you keep track of your changes. So that'll let you do things like branching, where you can roll back through the scenario and take it in a different direction based on what's happening or what the feedback is. So it's important to make sure you track who made the change, so you can defend or reject the change if needed, what the actual detail of that change is and the position of the employee, and any notes that have been added to the position, or any detail that's been added to a new position that's been created. So if you save your scenarios, then you can dive back in and move backward or forward through them. Then you've got your new scenarios, you can go back to your management review process and repeat as many times as you need to get the right structure. So in terms of coordinating your approvals, they need to be managed in an appropriate way to your organisation. So individual review and sign off, or a group meeting, or are these going to be processed through a set of approvers? Depending on how your organisation works, you need to be prepared to feed information into that approval process. So those that are not involved in the nuts and bolts of the restructure, they probably need a link to the restructure that they can access, or a PDF that meets their data requirements and has relevant metrics for what they want to see. For managers that are time poor, or often the reality is they've just got short attention spans, highlighting the changes, like what you can see on screen in a visual format through the scenarios, lets you put the actual changes onto the screen, so people can see them and they can confirm what they talked about in the meeting without any mistakes. So while we call it the approval process, sometimes you get bumped back into the review process and the update process if you've got late changes or on the ground realities with your restructure. So tracking changes for the HR rollout and HRIS updates. So once you've got through the pressure of the approval process, the rollout can be, it's one of those things that it can easily be assumed that it's not involved. For the people that aren't delivering it or aren't involved in it, they can assume it's a straightforward task that's just going to get done and managed. But once putting aside the human impact of a restructure and dealing with that in a proper way, the HR documentation and processing the actions alongside the system updates, there can be a significant amount of work there, and it needs to be managed properly and done in a particular sequence. So it's important to plan for that and resource for it and look for some shortcuts. So this is where your change log, if you've got one, can come in, and a conflict log. So if your approvals have come 30, 60, 90 days after you took your first grab of the structure from your data set, then you need a conflict log, a way of being able to compare your approved structure back against the reality of what the organisation looks like 90 days on. So a good modelling tool will spit that out for you and give you a list like what you can see on screen. So you've got a line-by-line comparison. You can then use your tools and resources to feed that back into your source of truth, and then action the various HR outputs and items that you need to by going step by step through the approved structure. So lastly, facilitating a quarterly review and an org health check. So you might ask, what's the point of this? So what this does is it lets you track the outcomes of the restructure. So what gaps or employee changes have occurred, and did we actually achieve what we put into the plan? So if you keep your scenarios saved and tracked in your workforce planning tool, you can very easily run a set of summary reports using all the metrics that you had for your restructure. You can highlight any changes on the org chart, and you can have the system do that for you. So details that are relevant. So an example of that is during the restructure, we said the marketing department was going to have a particular agreed salary budget outcome. Did they meet this 3 months on, 6 months on? What does it look like now that the dust has settled? Are they over or under? And things like span of control and department headcount. When unexpected management casualties occur, or there's a consolidation of departments and management responsibilities, this can get missed in the scope, and 3-6 months on, what you thought was a nice organised structure, the reality of the employees and their choices have impacted that, and that review and org health check is going to let you audit that in a really easy way and share that information with your organisation and make sure that the restructure is effective. So we wanted to share these 8 secrets with you as part of your restructure roadmap and how you work through it. So I've obviously used some screenshots from one of our platforms as a guide, and what we'll do now is just do a little bit of Q&A. So I'll just go through a few questions now, and feel free to ask any more if you have them. Okay, so the first one, how do I get data into a workforce modelling platform, and can you feed in multiple data sources? So in terms of getting the data in, you can do this a couple of ways. So at a really simple level, you can feed in a CSV or an Excel file. So you can use that or an XML file to come out of your other systems and feed it into a particular platform. You can also set up linkages to your databases or to multiple systems. So some of the screenshots you've seen today, that type of a system, you can have 5, 6, however many data sources you need, and then throw in an Excel as well at a later stage, and the system will bring in all of that data together like a data warehouse, and allow you to create different views that are relevant to your restructure. So the next question here, how do you get around an HRS system that's person-based and not position-based? So where the employees have multiple roles across different work locations, or when an employee leaves a current role and all the associated positions that they occupy disappear along with them. So that's a really good question. One of the ways that you get around this is that depending on the tool that you're using and the data set that you have, you want to be able to visualize that in the tool. So some of you may have seen on the first chart that I put up there, or the first screenshot, there was the option to switch between the org chart and the position chart. So a good quality modeling tool will allow you to switch between those structures. So all that the tool needs is some sort of a hierarchy, a reporting hierarchy in your data set, and then it'll allow you to bring all of the data along with that. So we've got some, when we do product demonstrations, we go into detail of how that works and what happens to the data that's associated with it. So if you have a vacancy and then the positions, what will happen is if you remove a position, you can select exactly what happens to the structure underneath that. So does the position just get marked as vacant? does that position disappear and the reporting positions report to the next person in the hierarchy, or does the whole department go as well? So when you're creating your scenarios, you want to be able to do that in your tool as well. So are we going to demo the product in the webinar today? We thought we'd just move through the webinar pretty quickly and not actually go into a full demonstration. I thought I'd spare everybody that part of it. I'm always happy to do that, and I find with the demonstration parts of it, it's good to be able to do that one-on-one and go into detail and answer questions and so on as well. So if you're interested in an in-depth demo of the product, or even just a short one, shoot me an email and I'll follow that up with you separately. So I've got two more questions here. What does printing look like? So printing is a good one, and it's often a really big pain point. You know, any good workforce modelling tool is going to structure your output, be able to give you multiple outputs. So you're going to be able to output it to PDF or PowerPoint or a Word document. The really good ones will create a structured PDF with links throughout the document, so you can actually click up and down through the hierarchy if you've got a really broad organisation chart. So then you're able to share that with people outside of the system and they can navigate their way through the PDF. You can, of course, brand them and put particular information into the template for that PDF as well. I do have a question that says, how do I get started? And I think what that means is, you know, what do these tools look like, or you know, is this a large implementation, or how do you kind of get into this, to using these types of tools? Probably the easiest way to do it, we have on our website a 14-day trial of one of our products called Org+. So you can go there and download that, and that'll actually let you create an org chart. So if all you need to do is just create an org chart of your organisation, you know, I'd suggest going there, download that product, get yourself an up-to-date org chart with your data, and then you're off and running. And then what we can do is if you need to go beyond that, make contact with me and I'll have a chat with you about what your requirements are. I can talk through what our products are and what they do, and we can figure out whether one of those is appropriate or not, and what the actual structure of the tool would look like, and get into the specifics of what you need. So I think that's all the questions that we've got today. So I want to say thank you to everyone for your time today, and we'll share a link to the webinar. So we'll put it up on our website and blog posts. And yeah, look, please check us out on LinkedIn and send through any areas of interest, and I'll get one of my guys to investigate it. If you've got a chart or a view that you're struggling with, we'll investigate it, make a blog post out of it and share that with everyone so that they can get some help. And look forward to talking with you all at a future stage. So thanks, everybody.